Hello, friends. Welcome to this morning live stream. I'm Aya Soma, and since I actually broke my computer, I'm trying my best with the electronics that I have here at hand at my mom's house to share this Dhamma teaching this morning. So before we begin, we can pay homage to our original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, the reason why we're gathered here today. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Bhutam Dhammam Sangham Namasami. All right, so this morning we will be reading the Nakula Pitu Sutta. That is Samyutta Nikaya 22.1. As mentioned, since there is a little bit of a technical problem, I can't actually write in the comment section. So I can't put the link of the sutta, but you can find it on Sutta Central. If you put suttacentral.net, SN 22.1, I will be reading from Bhante Sujato's translation. All right, so the sutta begins by saying, at one time, the Buddha was staying in the land of the Bhagas at Crocodile Hill, in the deer park at Pesakala's wood. Then the household, Nakula's father, went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and said to the Buddha, Sir, I'm an old man, elderly and senior. I'm advanced in years and have reached the final stage of life. My body is ailing, and I'm constantly unwell. I hardly ever get to see the esteemed mendicants. May the Buddha please advise me and instruct me. It will be for my lasting welfare and happiness. That's so true, householder. That's so true, householder, for this body is ailing, trapped in its shell. If anyone dragging around this body claimed to be healthy even for a minute, what is that but foolishness? So you should train like this. Though my body is ailing, my mind will be healthy. That's how you should train. And then the householder, Nakula's father, approved and agreed with what the Buddha said. He got up from his seat, bowed, and respectfully circled the Buddha, keeping him on his right. Then he went up to Venerable Sariputta, bowed, and sat down to one side. Sariputta said to him, Householder, your faculties are so very clear, and your complexion is pure and bright. Did you get to hear Dhamma talk in the Buddha's presence today? What else, sir, could it possibly be? Just now the Buddha anointed me with the deathless ambrosia of a Dhamma talk. But what kind of ambrosial Dhamma talk has the Buddha anointed you with? So Nakula's father told Sariputta all that had happened and said, That's the ambrosia Dhamma talk that the Buddha anointed me with. But didn't you feel the need to ask the Buddha for the further question? Sir, how do you define someone ailing in body and ailing in mind, and someone ailing in body and healthy in mind? Sir, we would travel a long way to learn the meaning of this statement in the presence of Venerable Sariputta. May Venerable Sariputta himself please clarify the meaning of this. Well then, householder, listen and apply your mind well. I will speak. Yes, sir, replied Nakula's father. Sariputta said this. And how is a person ailing in body and ailing in mind? It's when an unlearned, ordinary person has not seen the noble ones and is neither skilled nor trained in the qualities of a noble one. They've not seen true persons and are neither skilled nor trained in the qualities of a true person. They regard form as self, self as having form in self, or self in form. They're obsessed with the thought, I am form, form is mine. But the form of theirs decays and perishes, which gives rise to sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress. They regard feeling as self, perception as self, choices as the sankharas are translated by Venerable Sujata as self, consciousness as self, essentially the five aggregates as self, as having, so as in self or self as in consciousness. And so all through the 5 aggregates. And the Sariputta says, that's how a person is ailing in body and ailing in mind. And how is a person ailing in body and healthy in mind? It's when a learned noble disciple has seen the noble ones and is skilled and trained in the teaching of the noble ones. They've seen true persons and are skilled and trained in the teaching of the true person. They don't regard form, feeling, perceptions, choices, and consciousness as self, and so forth. They don't perceive all the 5 aggregates, self as having all the 5 aggregates, or they don't perceive the 5 aggregates in self, or the 5 aggregates, or self in the 5 aggregates. That's how a person is ailing in body and healthy in mind. That's what Venerable Sariputta said. Satisfied, Nakula's father was happy with what Sariputta said. So we can say 3 sadhus for the sutta. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And yeah, what a wonderful sutta. I've been thinking about, actually, been contemplating these verses quite a lot, actually, since I'm here in Italy. I've been in Italy, as many of you know, for some time, also looking at taking care of my elderly mother. So she's been suffering a lot, right, with a lot of the physical issues and also the mental issues that come because of that, right? So how does the Buddha once again tell us to deal with this physical pain that can come whenever actually we are born, really? It's not that it happens all of a sudden. We tend to think of, just elderly people perhaps having, an extreme sort of situation of old age and sickness, right? It's very apparent. But the reality is that as soon as we are born, even my young niece that you might be hearing in the background because she just woke up here once again at my mom's house. So you might hear the 2-year-old that is my niece that is currently visiting. And we tend to think, okay, well, she's young, she's full of health. But actually, even her, she's experiencing a lot of pain. There's a lot of actually uncomfortable sensations in the body. There's a lot of distress just by having actually these, both the physical component of the 5 aggregates and also the mental component of the 5 aggregates. And similarly, there's not actually much difference in the way that young people and really young people, young babies and elderly people are experiencing these 5 aggregates. I feel like they're, to a certain degree, they're both more delusional and less delusional than all of us that are a little bit more kind of grown up, right? That we get used to also to a certain degree having these unpleasant sensations. And only when they get really, really sort of extreme, then we're like, whoa, what's going on? Wait, I thought this body was reliable in a certain way. Or perhaps I thought that my memory was reliable in a certain way, or my consciousness was reliable in a certain way. And now it's not anymore. So when I go and hang out, my mom is also right now spending some time at a nursing home. She just entered a nursing home. And so I spent there several hours with her and some of the people that are also at the nursing home. And I was talking to this elderly man yesterday who was like almost 90, and he was telling me how sometimes he's just crying nonstop because he realizes that he cannot remember his wife's name, who's deceased, and he cannot remember his nephew's name, and he cannot remember his children's name. He cannot remember his parents' name, and that is a cause of distress. He can only remember that he cannot remember, right? And he's like, why is this happening to me? So a lot of dukkha, so much dukkha that actually also my elderly mom is experiencing at the same time, right? This difficulty of actually at a certain point having to face the fact that even our memories, even the dear ones, even while we are alive, all of these these things that we have in our heart somewhat don't depend on us, right? So the Buddha here, when the householder, who's very elderly, right, goes up to him and asks him for advice, he's talking obviously about his physical body. So the realization actually that the body has become quite painful, quite difficult to bear. So my mom is doing all right in the sort of specifically physically, like most of her body is functioning quite well. She's having problems with the brain. The other people, for example, at the nursing home, are mostly having problems actually with the sort of more normal aspects of the body, right? So rather than the brain, their cognitive functions, except for the man that I was talking about earlier, most of the other folks instead are actually doing pretty all right as far as memory is concerned, but their body is just really, really significantly more painful than my mom's, right? So they might have had heart attacks, and so they're dealing with heart conditions, or maybe they fell, and so they're doing some sort of rehabilitation, or just simply, actually they're doing just normal, but the body is just really, really painful. And so the Buddha, it's interesting because we see in the sutta, he doesn't actually talk about necessarily just the body in reference to old age, so a particular time and phase, but rather what he says is, if anyone dragging around this body claim to be healthy even for a minute, what is that but foolishness? So as I read this, is actually, it's really a reflection, really an invitation to actually look at the foolishness that we have of even actually doing this sort of demarcation of, at a certain point, at age X, this body, then it becomes ailing. Before it was healthy and then it's sick. But actually, it's this constant source of unpleasantness. For us meditators, we can actually really, really see that, right? Even when we're sitting, even when we're, in a meditation retreat, even if we're, developing a certain tranquility of mind, right? Even in a kind of like peaceful, blissful meditation, when we're actually still feeling the body, there's like that kind of discomfort where we're like, oh, wow, this body now I'm experiencing a lot of pain right now, even though I'm relaxed, even though I am, kind of enjoying this, but wow, that knee, wow, that's painful, right? Oh, that foot, that's painful, right? Even if we're not doing anything, we're not actually running the marathon, we're not doing a massive, kind of exercise. Actually, we're just sitting. Even just sitting can be really, really painful. And why is it really painful? Actually, because we're paying attention to it. We're actually really seeing the nature of this body. Even an itch during meditation practice can start feeling really uncomfortable, really difficult, right? It's only when we're actually getting a level of samadhi that then we're able to distinguish ourselves, to take distance from that physical pain. But up until that, actually, we are realizing, we're understanding the nature of this body. We're really, really seeing it, looking at it, tasting it. And yeah, it doesn't matter really how old we are, is it? Every single person, little child or elderly person, any person, even regardless of their sort of conventional state of health, whenever they're sitting, they will be they will be actually looking at this unpleasant side of the body, of that discomfort. And so that gives us an insight on actually the nature of this shell, this nature of form, the nature of this body. So the actual, what we really are talking about when we're talking about old age in Buddhism, we're actually really talking about decrepitude, the deterioration. So something that we see everywhere, even in the physical world, the all the kind of furniture. It's actually very interesting to see how the furniture, how the sort of house, how the stone also kind of starts deteriorating. Here in Italy, we go through many different houses, right? So even houses that were built not too long ago, or refurnished too long ago, actually, now at my parents' place, my parents' house. What was it, 30 years ago that they had renovated the house? Actually, it looks all right, already kind of deteriorating. Everything is peeling off, everything is crumbling down. So we understand that it's just the nature of form, the nature of this physicality. It's no different, right? It's part of when we are contemplating the four elements. So the elements of how, the earth element, how this earth element of the body is not terribly different from the earth element that is outside of this body. We tend to think that there's a difference, but actually it's subject to the same rules. It's subject to the same laws. It's subject to this same impermanence, deterioration, unsatisfactoriness, decay. And this process is all impersonal, right? So how foolish it is, how ignorant of us it is to actually think that there's a time when we're healthy and there's a time when we're sick. There's a time when we're young and there's a time when we're old. When actually this is constantly happening, Also, how foolish that we kind of create these distinctions, the birth and the death, when there's a constant process of birth and death when we see it. Right? In this moment, tons of cells are dying, and in this moment, tons of cells are being reborn. This moment, tons of thoughts are dying, and this moment, tons of thoughts are born, right? Or consciousness, right? Constant birth and death. And so I love the instructions of the Buddha to the householder, where he says, it's not that you should be doing this or that, but rather he says you should train yourself, not just pill solution, but rather he tells the householder, though my body is ailing, you should train yourself like this. Though my body is ailing, my mind will be healthy. That's how you should train yourself. And then, of course, Venerable Sariputta later on explains the difference, which is essentially the simile, right, of the two arrows, right? So we can't really avoid pain, but we can avoid suffering. And what does this mean? That the pain, the sort of physical deterioration, the body, the ailment of the body, this decrepitude, right? That is something that is just there. It's the nature of the body. But when we stop, as Venerable Sariputta describes later on, when we stop clinging, when we stop identifying, when we stop appropriating what is not ours. So both our sort of physical experience and both our mental experience. When we stop thinking, clinging, this is mine, this is who I am, this belongs to me, this defines me, right? When we stop doing that, we train ourselves once again, actually, not we just stop doing it, but we train ourselves to stop doing it. So we identify how we're doing it. And as the Buddha tells us, train yourself not to suffer mentally. Train yourself to fully understand this process of appropriation of the, these, with the 5 khandhas. Look at how that forms and then become dispassionate from it. Because whenever we see how something works, then we go, okay, well, actually, this is in fact impersonal. This is something that doesn't belong to me. This is a product of causes and conditions. I'm training myself to see this, and by seeing this, the result is a little bit less passion and more dispassion, right? More turning away from our constant wanting to say, this is me, this is mine, this belongs to me. And so the more we cultivate this habit of mind, the more we're going towards wisdom, the more we are not stabbing ourselves again with the second arrow, but only understanding pain for what it is, right? For just a natural, something that is, yes, it's a common process, common experience in the world. And this will also then be refined, because actually the body obviously is something that we can more quickly understand that it's not ours. But when it comes to our loved ones, when it comes to our dear ones, when it comes to our memories, our cherished, like the more refined sort of self-identifications, which is what that beautiful elderly person yesterday was talking about. Yeah, my mom's elderly friend at the nursing home, what he was talking about. Yeah, it's just so painful. You can't remember the name of your children. You can't remember even the name of your parents. Wow. Well, we can understand that even that memory doesn't belong to us. So what is left? What is the purpose of all of this? Yeah, that we actually put really, the good investment on what actually needs to be invested upon. While we're not, when we reach a certain point, it's a little bit too late. But during our life, if we're here, studying the Dhamma, we have access to the teachings of the Buddha, our cognitive faculties, our body, it's not in the best shape, of course. It's constantly ailing. It constantly has this sort of experience, but we can still make the best out of the situation. What do? Well, we train ourselves to see the three characteristics. We train ourselves so then when we get to that point, then we're like, okay, I can understand that this is not me, this is not mine. And what have I got that instead is actually really worth having? I've cultivated all my life peace, happiness, tranquility, non-attachment, right? I have done lots of good deeds that have created the settledness of heart. I have taken care of my family. I've taken care of my children. I have taken care of myself, right? All really beautiful things that we can just somewhat relinquish in that goodness of the heart, right? And it doesn't matter if we don't remember even the names that we've done good for. But we actually know, we understand, we have faith that doing those good deeds will bring good results. It's bringing good results here and now, and it's also bringing good results in the future. And also it's teaching us the impermanence, it's teaching us those three characteristics. So then at the moment of death, we will also be very well trained to be able to let go of these five aggregates, right? Without that, at least that strong clinging to them, that strong appropriation with them. We can understand that it's always been like that, arising and ceasing, right? So when those conditions are here, this is the result. When those conditions are not there anymore, that's that result. But it's not a pill, right? As the Buddha tells us in this sutta, it's something that we need to train ourselves with. Okay, so these are a few reflections. I'm seeing that there's some comments. Good to see a lot of friends tuning in. Hello to Richard, Isabel, Maria, Karuna. Good to see you. Nico, Samin, Jefferson, Rebecca, Sud, Gita, Isabel, Alex. And Jefferson says, when we're ill, how can we reflect on anatta, anicca, and dukkha of the five aggregates? I think I spoke about this quite at length, I feel, in this Dhamma talk. So if you have a particular specific question that hasn't been addressed so far, please feel free to type it in. And Niranjan, good to see you as well. And Sudha says, "Dear Aya, what about devas? They seem to be enjoying the five khandhas and they don't seem to be experiencing deterioration. Are five khandhas also painful in such existences?" Well, as you know, Sudha, there's different realms of deva realms, but that's also why actually we tend to think of the deva realms being so absolutely kind of great, which they are. But there is a reason why the human realm is actually the best for Dhamma practice. And that's because there is a little bit more difficulty than in the heavenly realms. We can see it also within the sort of heavenly realms of humanity, that sometimes if someone actually is a little bit too privileged, it's good to be privileged, a little bit privileged, but if someone is way too privileged, it can be also a bit of an obstacle in actually really getting in touch with with understanding the dukkha of our experience, right? So the heavenly realms, obviously there are refinements. So the lower devas, actually I would say there's still like an experience of actually the body, as opposed to the more refined realms. There is less of the physical body, but yeah, they're more intoxicated, I would say. It's still possible for devas to listen to the Dhamma and understand the Dhamma, but it's a little bit more complicated. So I would say that we can actually really be grateful, practice this as make this as a practice of gratitude, also to have this human birth, where actually this pain that we're experiencing and also the suffering that we're experiencing in relation to the pain is a great opportunity to understand the Four Noble Truths, right? Because if you don't really look at the suffering, if you don't really look at the dukkha, if your experience is mostly of sukha, which is also dukkha, but it's more difficult to see how sukha is dukkha when you don't even see that dukkha is dukkha, that there is dukkha, right? So we have that opportunity, and we can actually really recollect, wow, this human rebirth is perfect. I'm exactly here where I should be with the teachings of the Buddha, and I can analyze this experience, and I can train myself to essentially not stab myself the second time. Without having to go to the Deva realm, which I know, Sudha, that you're a very incredible being, a very incredible householder. So you have a lot of chances to get into the Deva realm. So you want to make the most in this lifetime to develop, the perception of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, so that then when you're going to be in a heavenly realm, you'll still have that tendency of mind to really look at the experience with less sort of disadvantages than we have in the human realm. And Nico says, would the Satipatthana be a good meditation to engage, contemplate decay and pain? Yes, absolutely. So that is, part of mindfulness of the body, is to actually really, there's that aspect of also looking at the asubha, so the non-beautiful aspect of the body, right? So obviously the most powerful meditation would be something that unfortunately these days it's not really widely accessible anymore, which is going to a charnel ground and seeing the body that is putrefied, that becomes putrefied in its states of putrefaction, and understand this body right here is no different than that body out there. It's of the same nature, right? So this actually, my dad, when he passed away this past October, we had him, as is a custom in Italy, we kept the body for 3 days in the house. Actually, we have a custom to have the body for less period of time, but because my brothers were abroad, one of them was in Indonesia, which was very far away, so he needed some extra time to come to Italy due to just simply traveling, getting the flight, and so forth. So then the body was kept for 3 days. And no matter all the kind of injections that we do these days in the West to sort of preserve the body and make it look kind of pretty and nice, there was a really strong decomposition of the body of my father in front of myself, right? So I was constantly observing all of these stages. And it was really, really difficult, really painful, but also so powerful, such an incredible contemplation to really understand that, I've seen my dad, I've known my dad for 40 years, right? So half of his life. And wow, it never occurred to me that actually I was constantly seeing his decrepitude. But it's very evident when we see the pictures, for example, in the, after his death, we started looking at all the family pictures since he was a little child. And wow, it's like all these changes and differences, such a different person in all the different decades, right? And then when he passed away, there was so many differences, obviously, so much decrepitude happening really, really quickly. So it was kind of like all his life, but fast forwarded in 3 days. And so that gave me a glimpse of also the sutta that we were talking about. So really understanding decay. And when we actually see that body, and especially a body that we know, a body of someone that we have loved, someone that is so dear to us, then it's really profound to actually understand the nature also of this body and understand the asubha quality. So since then, I've been doing constant practice of actually picturing also people that I meet, or people that I care about, as like in that process of decrepitude, just like I've seen on that process of bloating, of becoming blue, basically as if the body was already dead. And, we might think that the effect of those practices is going to be like of distress and more pain and more sorrow and more lamentation and distress. But instead, the Dhamma is so counterintuitive. The effect is of peacefulness, of tranquility, of actually surrendering also to the status quo. So then we start feeling also the body, right? Like there's another sutta where the Buddha says, past karma is just something that we need to feel. It just needs to be felt, right? So we can just experience the aggregates as something to be felt. And that's, I think, very powerful once we also embrace, right, these practices of really looking at the nature of the body. If we don't have the opportunity to see, a loved one that is in the phase of decomposition, the body, after death, then, and we don't have also the opportunity to see other bodies, well, we have always this body. We also have the body of others. So constantly reflecting, constantly looking at it, constantly also looking at how we perceive. Actually, there's this incredible monk that from last century, Venerable Lokanatha, who was the first Italian bhikkhu that we know of. He was born last century. And he gave some really wonderful Dhamma talks. And in one of his Dhamma talks, he was inviting folks to reflect on, for example, when we see hair on someone that we are physically attracted, right? We are like, wow, that hair is so beautiful. But then if we are eating a soup with hair, we're disgusted by the hair that is in the soup, and we actually will refuse to eat the soup altogether. It might be the same hair. So what is the difference, right, in our relation to the hair? So he was inviting us to reflect on how, when we're looking at the hair on someone that we're attracted, it's like a pot with boiling water, right? So you can't see the bottom of the pot with boiling water, because the pot is full of passion. The mind is full of passion. So when we look at the at the hair on a body, the passion just makes us all confused, and we start looking at hair as something attractive. But when we're actually looking at the hair in the soup, our mind doesn't have passion. So we actually see the disgustingness, the unattractiveness of the hair. We actually see its drawbacks. So things like that, I feel like we can really embrace in our daily life, not just as a, as a practice in formal meditation, but something, contemplation in our everyday life. Like, why is the mind reacting in that way? And why is it creating all these differences? Why, are my nails, why am I perceiving my nails as so pretty when I'm doing the manicure? But then actually when I see cut nails on the floor, I'm disgusted and repelled by them. Why do I perceive skin as being so beautiful? And then when I see flaked skin on the floor, I'm repelled by it, right? So considering, engaging in all of these reflections, in all these contemplations, that is also meditation. It's not just formal meditation sitting down, but it's meditation like really welcoming good thoughts in the mind, wisdom, thoughts of wisdom. And hello to Monica and Stevie. Isabel says, happy to see you. I miss you guys at the Rockaways. Well, you should come and visit us in New Jersey, so at Empty Cloud USA. And if you'll ever come to Italy, also Empty Cloud Italy, if all goes well with the fundraiser that we're currently doing to try and open something here as well. Hello, Jayanta. Good to see you. And Matthias as well. Isabel says, can you quickly go over the 5 aggregates and how to integrate in daily meditation? I think we went through that already. But what I would add, perhaps, is also not necessarily to be so kind of crazy, so methodical about things. Wouldn't go like, okay, now I'm only like looking at the form aggregate, and now I'm only looking at the feeling aggregate, and now I'm only looking at the perception aggregate, and now I'm only looking to the consciousness aggregate, and now I'm only looking to the sankhara aggregate, which I don't understand exactly what it is. Is it choices? Is it volitional formations? But what do volitional formations, what exactly are, you see, it just becomes very, very, very intellectual and kind of a little bit confusing. But rather, and also it's a little bit difficult to kind of separate all of these together. What I find a little bit more skillful is to understand these 5 aggregates also in how they are related with one another, right? So the perception and the consciousness in relation to the Vedana, and also to the feelings, and in relation to also the sankharas, and then also in relation to the form, right? And vice versa. So like looking at all of that, of how these 5 aggregates are subject to clinging, how we cling to the form, how we cling to feeling, how we cling to our perceptions, how we cling to these volitional formations. That's my favorite translation for sankharas. But choices also can be very, very useful, right? How Bhante Sujato is talking about it. So how every time that we make a choice, also it shapes a new, different experience of our a new experience of the world, we can say. Right? We can have a new consciousness, a new awareness of all of this. And so when we're doing, for example, just simple mindfulness of the body in a formal meditation, and there is pain that arises in the body, we can start at the very beginning, especially of meditation practice. It's very common to start moving and start constantly trying to run away from that pain, right? And we kind of do, and we can start seeing this sort of circle, this sort of mini samsara, sort of unscientific way, actually, of approaching dukkha, of approaching a solution towards trying to find a solution to alleviate that suffering, which is repelled from that sensation, I try to move, and then I get back to another unpleasant sensation, and repelled from that sensation, and trying to search, running towards a pleasant sensation or even towards a neutral sensation, right? I constantly am in this sort of predicament. I'm back to square one. I'm back to square one. I'm back to square one. I'm back to square one, right? And there's constantly difficulty, suffering, and even more pain actually arises in the body. So then when instead we are skillful and we start letting go of our desire to move in meditation practice, when we are experiencing pain, and we actually, instead of turning away from that, like we're being like, oh, I hate this, I don't like this, I don't want this unpleasant feeling has to stop, we actually welcome it in the way of going like, now I'm going to see of what nature you are, right? How am I experiencing this pain? How am I experiencing what do I think this pain is, right? And so we look at if it's, the leg that is hurting. Right now, I have a bit of pain actually in my knee. So I can either move and create more turbulence, and then either the same knee will be in pain, or something else will be in pain, or I actually look at it. I watch it and I'm like, okay, now I will let go of the desire of you wanting to leave, and I will actually look at you. And so we look at it and we see how it's constantly changing. We see the 3 characteristics of anicca, right? Of constantly changing. Sometimes it's actually in the knee, sometimes, in the knee. Sometimes it like disappears and it's in the thigh and so forth. And we're like, oh, wait, sometimes there's also no pain, but there is the aversion or the anxiety towards the pain coming back again. Oh, how very interesting that I'm also suffering when there is no actual pain. How very ridiculous, right? So then we start creating a new tendency of mind, a new action of actually being there, stilling, being equanimous, letting go of our natural instincts of dealing it. And we rewire our habits. We create new kamma, new choices, new sankharas, which then create a new sort of both awareness, both experience of our mind and body. And so this simple, for example, practice, very, very simple, is actually already we're seeing, we're really integrating, we're seeing, form, obviously, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness all kind of intertwined. And also the 5 aggregates split both in the sort of mind and physical aspect. So this is what comes to mind. Oops. Done some. Okay, and Don asks, advice for practitioners who were brought to Dhamma by chronic physical pain but have not had time to train with smaller pains first in accordance to Dhamma training. Don. Yes, well, first and foremost, I'm sorry that you're going through so much pain. And yeah, I would say it's also good to try to cultivate a mind of love and kindness for yourself. So maybe also try and welcome, I would really work on your both dana and sila. Or I don't know if it's a question for yourself, but anyway, for practitioners who are brought to Dhamma by chronic physical pain, I would say do lots of good deeds, essentially, and do also refine even more the sila. And then actually do those kind of practices to recollect the good deeds that one has done, and also the sila so the morality that one keeps, and kind of brighten the mind with that. Like, oh, wow, I'm such a good person, right? So we want to lift up a little bit our situation so that there's a little bit of spectrum to actually deal with the chronic pain. Otherwise, if we just go fully in the chronic physical pain without having gradually kind of climbed, sort of, so to speak, the mountain, I feel it would be very, very difficult, very arduous. And so uplifting that, this is actually good for everyone. Everybody should be doing lots of dana and sila. That's part of the gradual training that the Buddha teaches us, right? To really create a fertile soil. So this is for everyone. But, if someone just starts their practice because of experiencing enormous pain, I would say this would be my invitation, and also recollecting the incredible qualities of the Buddha, the incredible qualities of the Dhamma, the incredible qualities of the Sangha, and practicing also the Brahma Viharas. So anything that can uplift the heart, and then same thing for then one can practice also with, of course, mindfulness of the body and the contemplations, but at least one has some really nice suitcase of punya that can brighten the mind and heart, and make us brave when we're experiencing such pain. Good to see you, Mana. Nico says, I found the Maranasati practice helpful. Would recollections of death in the Visuddhimagga be beneficial? Yes, I mean, I feel like any contemplations of death, the more the merrier. I'm a big fan of that. Oh, and Isabel says, coming to Italy in June. Well, send us an email so maybe we can meet up. And, sorry, with... I'm having technological problems, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult with the comments. And Kit says, thank you, Aya. The contemplation on hair you mentioned is really interesting. I'm vain about the hair in my head and utterly disgusted with it in the drain or in food. Yeah, exactly. So we want to really, once again, try to integrate the Dhamma in every moment of our life. This is what it means to really reflect and contemplate that. Meditation shouldn't just be, sort of exercise that we do from 6:30 to 7:30 after we've gone to the gym, and then we don't do anything the rest of the day. What we need to do is actually really embrace, really take on these contemplations that the Buddha is giving us, these reflections, and really act upon them, really start seeing the world based on these teachings. And that's when I feel like we see a lot of change. And Nico says, can I engage mental pain in the same way of the cushion, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral? So sorry, could you repeat the number of the sutta? So the number of the sutta, let me get it right now, is Samyutta Nikaya 22.1. It's the Nakula Pitu Sutta, so Nakula's father. And yes, mental, you can also look at the pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Also the mental pain as well. Okay, I think that's all for this morning. Good to see you also, Miguel. So we can end with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. You be well and happy, and may all good things come to you.